Zelensky has targeted very clear timeline. 2023, this year, will be end of this war if Ukraine will get enough ammunition and weapons, conventional weapons, without any political caveats. Those who say that maybe fighter jets, long-range missiles without caveats are too escalative are wrong, because Russia is already using all the menu, a la carte menu of these conventional weapons.
Minister, the Europeans are talking.
There's some suggestion from Secretary Blinken that China might be about to send weapons to Russia. How concerned are you about that?
Very. As we are very concerned about Iran being a proxy in that context to Russia, thousands of drones have given by Iran to Russian possession. They are training in Ukrainian soil Russian soldiers, and there need to be strong consequences towards Iran, also in the context that we need to pressure by all means also and give a warning to China that international community will anyhow not accept it, and it will make also, I hope they do not want to see hands covered with blood of China also, and I hope they will not take that stance to start to deliver weapons to Russia.
Minister, the Europeans are talking lately only about sanctions, about deliver weapons to Ukrainian, and not talk at all about the peace. Does it mean that the peace or stopping this war is very far?
Peace is modus vivendi of all our actions. Modus operandi is to achieve the peace, and these are the elements to reach to the peace are support Ukraine and resist Russia. And the reality is that Russia has not given any centimeter of its strategic intent to take control over all the Ukraine, and this is the context we today stand. So Estonia fully supports the President Zelensky's 10-point peace plan, and we encourage all the parties act immediately.
Could the EU afford to sanction China if they were to deliver weapons?
I think in a holistic approach, secondary sanctions are very reasonable to study. And on China, yes, I would. We need to do everything to avoid such kind of strategic leverage of Russia to get.
What is the 10 sanctions package, and is it enough? What is the 10 sanctions package that is coming this week?
It is step further, far from being enough. So what we need is fully cut all the Russian financial system, what they are using also to circumvent sanctions. Secondly, as I said, the oil gap, and also link Russian LNG gas to this oil gap. And what we need is that we will address more harshly these countries who are circumventing the sanctions, and there is a vast list of them.
Do you have any information on what Russia could plan on the 24th and if so, what kind?
From European peace facility, and this kind what Moldovan government finds appropriate in the current context. I think we should not we should to be determined that we give a practical security support to Moldova, what is needed. Now, basically, from EU peace facility are around 40 million packages going. One element is cyber security, and Estonia is like a subcontractor or provider of this pan-European project. And as I said, Moldova has asked to put this list, to put the sanctioning list, the oligarchs who are basically trying to orchestrate coup d'etat.
Do you have any information on what Putin might plan for the 24th, for the anniversary of the Russian invasion?
Something ugly, at least rhetorically.
And what is happening on the ground? Any information on that when it comes to the new offensive?
I think that there is a preparatory phase on that. That they are the gathering of reserves is going on, and at the same time they are trying not in the all front line but in particular places to get leverage. Thank you.
Russia in the corner and humiliate Russia. In these circumstances, are you worried that if you support more Ukraine and you want to break Russia, the risk of war extended to another countries is there and more high?
I think that if we will let aggressor, as leaders of aggressor, but also aggressor or state as entity, unpunished, this will rise. A threat that this aggression could also repeat itself in other directions or in other time. And therefore, I think what is needed, we have from the near past understood, Russia, the current Putin regime, understands only power as willpower and determination of free world countries to resist it, but also a practical, solid capabilities to defend ourselves, and that would be the approach. And Russia, I think, already is in the corner, as psychologically, but also in the context of international relations. And of course, Russia consists of immense threat to Europe, and therefore the not to give gradual rise to Russian ambitions is truly to help Ukraine win.
Thank you very much, sir.
What they are using also to circumvent sanctions. Secondly, as I said,
Godmorgen. Lars Løkke Rasmussen, skal EU til at indkøbe krudt og kugler og hjælpe Ukraine på den måde?
I EU køber vi jo allerede krudt og kugler. Vi gør det så land for land, men der er jo et voldsomt behov i Ukraine for at få leveret ikke mindst ammunition. Og derfor er det en rigtig, rigtig god idé, hvis vi puljer vores ressourcer og køber ind sammen. Det var egentlig også den lektie, der var under coronakrisen, hvor man gik ind og sørgede for at få sat gang i en vaccineproduktion. Vi har jo en forsvarsindustri, og det har man jo kun glæde sig over, som er indstillet på fredstid og ikke krigstid. Så der er et betydeligt kapacitetsproblem, og derfor er det en god idé, som vi støtter fra dansk side, hvis vi bruger EU-fællesskabet, eller sådan Alliance of the Willing, til at købe ind sammen.
4 milliarder euro foreslår Estland, der skal bruges på det her. Hvor skal de penge findes hen?
Der er jo ikke noget alternativ til at finde pengene til at støtte Ukraine i deres frihedskamp. Man må jo forstå, at den kamp, de kæmper, det er jo også vores kamp. Og den ambition, der er i Rusland, det er jo virkelig en undergrav hele den europæiske sikkerhedsordning. I dag mødes vi også med Moldovas udenrigsminister, som jeg havde lejlighed til sammen med statsministeren og forsvarsministeren at besøge for kort tid siden, sammen med hans præsident. Og nu hørte vi så om, hvordan der har været russiske planer om i virkeligheden at fremkalde et kup i Moldova. Og det viser jo, hvor skrøbeligt det hele er. Så vi er nødt til her, hvor vi nærmer os etårsdagen for krigen i Ukraine, at være fremme i front og støtte. Og det er klart, det er en udfordring. Det er det også derhjemme, og det er noget, vi kommer til at diskutere også med Folketingets politiske partier. Fordi den bevilling, der blev sat af sidste år med nationale kompromis, den er jo brugt op. Men altså, der er ikke noget alternativ. Det er en bunden opgave.
Hvis vi beslutter os for at indkøbe krudt og kugler i fællesskab i EU, hvornår kan det komme ukrainerne til gavn? Det tager vel noget tid.
Det er jo ikke en beslutning, vi kommer til at træffe i dag. Det er en beslutning, vi kommer til at drøfte i dag, og den rummer også nogle udfordringer i forhold til en række lande, som i deres forfatninger har nogle ting, der kan være en barriere for det, og det er måske derfor, man skal ind i den her tanke om at skabe en koalition af europæiske lande. Men det er klart, jo før vi signalerer den her vilje, jo før kan det lade sig gøre. Altså, der foregår jo i regi af Reimstangsprocessen og andre steder jo en dialog også med forsvarsindustrien. Og det gælder på det her ammunitionsområde, som det gælder på andre områder. Det har jo været sådan, og det har man jo så kunne glæde sig over historisk, at vi har levet i en tid, hvor vi ikke forestillede os, at vi skulle have krig på europæisk jord. Fredsdividenden blev taget hjem. Det har også sat sig i forsvarsindustrien. Den har været indstillet på fredstid, nu er det krigstid. Og derfor er der brug for et innovativt samarbejde mellem EU-landene, men det rækker jo også til USA og Canada og en række andre lande, og så den internationale forsvarsindustri.
Vi skal også diskutere sanktioner mod Rusland. Kommer der en 10. pakke, og hvornår kommer den?
Jeg føler mig helt sikker på, at der kommer en 10. sanktionspakke, og jeg føler mig også tryg ved, at den kommer på plads inden årsdagen. Det bliver ikke i dag, men vi får en drøftelse om det, og jeg føler mig tryg ved at overbevise om, at den kommer på plads inden årsdagen.
Og hvis du skal beskrive niveauet på de sanktioner, der nu ligger, både allerede ligger, og dem, der kommer fremover, altså hvor voldsomt er de her europæiske sanktioner over for Rusland, og hvilken effekt har de?
Hvis vi får en sanktionspakke på plads, hvad jeg tror, vi får, så er det jo altså en 10. sanktionspakke. Og samlet set har det jo gjort en forskel, men det er klart, at sanktionerne kan ikke stå alene, og der vil være et vedvarende russisk forsøg på at finde smutvej, og der er jo desværre lande, derude, som ser helt anderledes på den her krig, end vi gør. Vi skal også diskutere Iran i dag, og det er jo en kendt sag, at Iran for eksempel støtter den russiske hær med droner og andet. Så man må jo forstå, at vi skal gøre mange ting på en og samme tid. Og det med hele tiden at stramme sanktionerne, der står Danmark der, at vi støtter de stærkest tænkelige sanktioner, i det vi så samtidig skal holde enigheden blandt alle EU-lande. Det er en del af løsningen, og den skal jo så følges op med våbenleverancer, og så skal den følges op med humanitær bistand, og det er jo blandt andet derfor, at vi i Danmark i øjeblikket sidder og kigger på, hvordan vi kan konstruere en Ukrainefond, som ud over det militære også har et sigte på det civile, det humanitære og på egentlig genopbygning.
Mr. Minister, a couple of questions in English, if you don't mind. Number one, Foreign Minister Kaleba apparently is not now joining your meeting. Can you tell us what reasons you've been given for that?
Actually, I have no knowledge about that, so you just informed me about it.
Okay. Second question, Secretary Blinken is saying he's worried that China might be about to deliver weapons for the first time to Russia. How concerned are you about those reports?
If State Secretary Blinken is concerned, I'm concerned as well. I had the opportunity to meet him last week in Washington, and generally we are concerned about those countries around the world who are not, on the right side of history, and that's why we need to reach out to those countries, India, China, among others, because it is important that the United world stands with Ukraine in her fight against the Russian occupation. Thank you.
Good morning. We are approaching the first anniversary of Russia's aggression on Ukraine. Unfortunately, the end of war is not in sight. However, solidarity with Ukraine remains of vital importance, and we need to stay united, patient and resilient. When it comes to Croatia, we will continue assisting Ukraine, including the demining and with psychosocial rehabilitation. Today morning we had a good conversation with Mr. Garry Kasparov, who is also a Croatian citizen. This afternoon I look forward to the exchange with Moldovan Minister Nicu Popescu. Moldova is really on has serious challenges, and we have to support them. I will also brief my colleagues on my recent visit to Armenia and Georgia, the two countries in our neighborhood, and we also need to support and their ambitions and to help them, these two countries. The humanitarian situation in Afghanistan is serious, and we must to utmost to help the Afghani people, and first of all, and especially women and girls. Thank you very much.
About the extension of the war, are you worried that the war will extend?
Yeah, whereby they swapped. So I think he's... Yes, that's probably, yeah, St. Paul. So where do you want to stand?
Guten Morgen.
Guten Morgen.
Morgen.
Haben Sie ein Statement mitgebracht oder sind wir direkt fragen?
Fragen Sie.
Sind Sie besorgt über mögliche Machtlieferungen durch China?
Ja, also Sie wissen, dass wir heute stark auch daran arbeiten, bis zum Freitag, dass wir das hinbekommen. Sanktionspaket, ich glaube das 10., was Russland angeht. Da sind auch Sanktionen drauf gegen 7 Firmen aus dem Iran. Und ich hoffe wirklich, was China angeht, wenn Sie mich so fragen, dass China nicht diesen Fehler macht, ich würde es als Fehler ansehen, noch mehr Waffen den Russen zur Verfügung stellen, nur noch mehr Leid, mehr Menschen zu töten in der Ukraine. Bis jetzt war China ja auch der UNO, hat sich enthalten, hat ganz klare Positionen bezogen, was Atomwaffen angeht. Und ich hoffe, dass das dabei bleibt. Es ist nicht an mir, aber wenn wir eine Parallele ziehen zwischen dem, was wir machen bis Freitag, was Russland, Iran angeht, wir immer eine Balance hat, dann schaden wir damit Drittländern oder nicht. Das ist die Balance, die wir gefunden haben. Ich glaube, dass zuerst mal das nicht eingetreten ist, was Putin gesagt hat, die europäische Wirtschaft würde kollabieren. Das ist nicht eingetreten, trotzdem, dass wir Energie ja total gekappt haben. Und zweitens, es ging uns nie darum, jetzt Russland, das russische Volk in die Knie zu zwingen, wirtschaftlich. Es ging uns darum, und das ist trotzdem auf dem richtigen Weg, die Konsequenzen werden kommen, dass Putin nicht noch mehr Mittel hat, um diesen Krieg weiterzuführen. Darum geht es bei den Sanktionen. Und dass ein Druck wird, auf Russland an Verhandlungen zu kommen. Wir wollen ja alle, das Ziel ist Verhandlungen, Friedensverhandlungen. Aber gut, das dekretiert man nicht so. Es gibt keine Anzeichen. Diplomatie braucht immer zwei. Und es gibt keine Anzeichen, dass Russland bereit ist dazu. Ja. Ja. Ja.
Diskutieren oder nur die Firmen, die Technologie an Russland
Nein, nein. Also wir werden, was Iran angeht, auch Dutzende Personen, das sind Richter, es sind Gefängnisbeamte, es sind Abgeordnete, ich kann keine Namen nennen, das geht ja nicht. Wir sollen das auch heute schon stehen haben, aber dass das Menschen sind, die andere Menschen verurteilen, sogar zum Tode verurteilen. Dass die auf die Liste kommen, sind Dutzende dieser Menschen. Und dann das andere habe ich Ihnen ja gesagt. Wissen Sie, wir sind in Europa in einem Rechtsstaat. Und wir müssen unsere eigenen Regeln des Rechtsstaats respektieren. Viele von uns wären froh gewesen, wenn wir einen Weg direkt jetzt gefunden hätten, um auch die Revolutionsgarden zu listen. Aber Sie kennen die Lage, wie sie ist. Juristisch ist das nicht möglich. Zurzeit, politisch bleiben wir dran, dass wir all die Sanktionen treffen, die das Regime unter Druck setzen, dass sie aufhören, dass sie die Menschen, die im Gefängnis sind und friedlich protestiert haben, dass sie die freilassen. Das ist das Recht der Iraner, auf die Straßen zu gehen und sich so anzuziehen, wie sie das wollen. Okay? Ich muss. Ja.
Es braucht zwei in der Diplomatie.
Was sagen? Ja.
Wenn man Frieden möchte. Jetzt schaltet sich auch da China ein. Überrascht sind Sie, dass China jetzt geplant wurde?
China ist da. Das braucht sich nicht einzuschalten. China war von Anfang an da. Sie wissen, das war ja seit den Olympischen Spielen eine gewisse, sagen wir mal, Allianz, die zwar nicht so, sagen wir mal, so fest war, aber bis jetzt sind keine da. Wenn China sich einschaltet, sind wir in einer total anderen und nicht besseren Direktion, was die Weltlage angeht. Nicht nur was Sicherheit angeht, sondern auch ökonomisch und so weiter. Okay.
Aber auch nicht mit dem Friedensplan?
Der Friedensplan der Chinesen, glauben Sie? Ja, der soll ja am Freitag kommen, wenn ich richtig verstanden habe, in München. Natürlich die Glaubwürdigkeit, die Kredibilität dieses Plans hängt ja davon ab, ob wirklich China Waffen jetzt liefert nach Russland, die eingesetzt werden in der Ukraine. So, ich muss.
Intervención hoy en el Consejo de Seguridad Europea exactamente igual que cuando suba a la tribuna. Buenos días. Esta es una semana importante y al mismo tiempo triste para Ucrania y para lo que supone la agresión injusta, injustificada y brutal de Rusia a Ucrania. Hoy, evidentemente, va a ser el tema central del debate que voy a mantener con el alto representante y con mis colegas europeos, y lo vamos a continuar este miércoles y este jueves en la Asamblea General de Naciones Unidas, donde una vez más yo estoy seguro que se va a volver a evidenciar la soledad de Rusia en la comunidad internacional en continuar esta guerra ilegal y brutal. Desde luego, mi intervención hoy en el Consejo de Asuntos Exteriores de la Unión Europea, exactamente igual que cuando suba a la tribuna de Naciones Unidas en la Asamblea General, va a ser para solicitar una vez más la paz inmediata en Ucrania y en Europa. Pero eso sí, una paz dentro de los principios de la Carta de Naciones Unidas, respetando la soberanía y la integridad territorial de Ucrania. En este contexto de un año este viernes de la agresión brutal de Rusia a Ucrania, vamos a tener un almuerzo también con nuestro colega moldavo, Nico Popescu, al que tuve la ocasión de recibir en Madrid hace muy pocas semanas. Vamos a analizar la situación de un país que es candidato ya a entrar en la Unión Europea, que está también pagando un alto precio por esta agresión ilegal de Rusia a Ucrania, acogiendo muy generosamente a muchos refugiados ucranianos. Yo tuve la oportunidad al inicio de la guerra de visitar algunos de los campos de refugiados y desde luego nosotros colaboramos activamente en intentar aliviar esa situación, y algunos de los casi 170.000 ucranianos que están en estos momentos residiendo como refugiados en España provienen de esos campos de Moldavia. Moldavia va a ser anfitriona también de la cumbre, la segunda cumbre de la Comunidad Política Europea, que tendrá un seguimiento en una tercera cumbre por parte de España durante nuestra presidencia, inminente presidencia. Estamos a algo más de 4 meses del Consejo de la Unión Europea y por lo tanto hay un diálogo especial entre España y Moldavia para que esa nueva entidad, que es la Comunidad Política Europea, dé todos sus frutos. Y esperamos muy pronto poder organizar un diálogo entre el trío de los 3 anfitriones próximos, Moldavia, España y Reino Unido, que continuará la Comunidad Política Europea, la reunión en España. Vamos a analizar también la situación en Afganistán y en Irán, 2 países que nos preocupan mucho. En Afganistán, que como saben es un compromiso personal. Desde la caída del aeropuerto de Kabul tuve la oportunidad el sábado pasado en la conferencia de seguridad de Múnich de participar en un panel sobre la situación en Afganistán. No podemos permitir que todo aquello que contribuimos a crear un espacio de libertad, de derechos para mujeres y niñas, una mejora en la educación, en la sanidad, durante tantos años en Afganistán sea un paréntesis en su historia. Es inaceptable que las mujeres y las niñas queden apartadas de la sociedad en Afganistán, que queden apartadas del trabajo humanitario de las ONGs, tan necesario en estos momentos. Y, por supuesto, no podemos dejar que 28 millones de personas caigan en la pobreza extrema. Por lo tanto, tenemos que encontrar las vías para defender los derechos humanos en Afganistán, para defender muy especialmente un espacio de libertad para las mujeres y las niñas y para que la ayuda humanitaria llegue directamente al terreno. Y trataremos también la situación en Irán, donde, como saben ustedes, hay muchos occidentales retenidos, hay 2 españoles. He tenido 2 conversaciones telefónicas con el ministro de Asuntos Exteriores de Irán en los últimos meses para solicitar su inmediata liberación, y el embajador de España en Teherán tiene instrucciones directas mías de tener este tema como prioritario. Ha podido entrevistarse con ambos españoles, constatar que dentro de las circunstancias están bien, pero desde luego en este debate esta circunstancia va a pesar mucho hoy. Si tienen alguna pregunta antes.
Quería preguntarle por el 10º paquete de sanciones. Hay una verdadera intención de aprobarlo de cara al 24. El impulso de hoy, ¿espera usted que sea definitivo? ¿Cómo lo ve? Porque otros anteriores ha costado, cada día va costando más aprobar un nuevo paquete.
Yo estoy seguro de que este paquete de sanciones saldrá adelante con la misma unidad con lo que hemos demostrado en los 9 anteriores. Hoy no se esperan conclusiones al respecto, pero sí un debate intenso. No puedo hablar en nombre de mis colegas, pero yo estoy seguro de que la unidad se va a mantener. Lo que sí le puedo decir es pues la posición del Gobierno de España, y es claramente el de apoyar este paquete de sanciones. Y yo estoy convencido de que a lo largo de esta semana quedará aprobado.
Ministro, ¿cómo valora el plan estonio para un plan conjunto a nivel europeo para mandar artillería a comprar y mandar artillería a Ucrania?
Lo vamos a estudiar de cerca. Hay una cosa que está clara. La guerra de Ucrania nos ha demostrado que tenemos que repensar la defensa europea y muy en concreto la industria de la defensa europea. Tiene que haber una interoperabilidad de todo aquello que hacemos en Europa. Tiene que haber una reflexión sobre cómo hacer mejor y conjuntamente aquello que estamos haciendo por separado. España tiene una industria de defensa, es uno de los pocos países de la Unión Europea que tiene una industria de defensa potente y tecnológicamente elevada. Y nos gusta, como siempre, jugar europeo. Lo hacemos en el futuro avión europeo del FCAS, estamos en el consorcio de Airbus, por lo tanto España ya lleva trabajando europeo. Por lo tanto, una reflexión, una pista en ese sentido, como la que propone Estonia, que estamos estudiando y analizando detalladamente, a priori no nos suena en absoluto mal, todo lo contrario.
Minister,
please, there was a question, and this will be the last time.
Minister, when and how will find an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine, or the Russian war?
For me, it's very clear when the war will be ending. When Vladimir Putin will tell the Russian soldiers to go back into the Russian Federation borders that they had never should live. Let's not forget, this is a unilateral, illegal and unjust war of aggression of Russia to Ukraine. If it's up to the government of Spain, we would seize any possibility for peace, but this must be a peace within the United Nations Charter, respecting sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
Good morning. This devastating earthquake that has occurred in Turkey and Syria, we intend to do as much as we possibly can from the Swedish presidency. So we are now going to organize the donors conference that is going to be held here on the 16th of March in Brussels, and we are doing this together with the Commission. Our aim is to raise additional support for the people of Turkey and Syria and try to do as much as possible to alleviate the terrible consequences of this earthquake. We expect a high-level turnout of people for this conference, and we also expect to be able to raise more money to do as much as we can for the people of these countries.
Can we ask you about China? Because China says it's got a peace plan, but also Secretary Blinken says he fears that China's about to provide weapons to Russia. So what is your message when you hear these things about China? What's your message to Beijing right now?
Well, first of all, I think it has to be appreciated that we are fully on the side of Ukraine, and that means that we want to see no support whatsoever to Russia in this moment in time, because Russia is has created a war of illegal aggression against Ukraine. So that is a very clear message: no weapons under no circumstances from any country towards Russia. So we stand, of course, side by side with the United States on that message, of course.
What consequences would that have if China were to deliver weapons?
Well, I think the question should be asked first and foremost to the United States, because this is, after all, a debate between the United States and then China at this moment in time. But as I just said, if such a decision were taken, it would definitely have consequences, of course.
Enligt Havis ska din turkiska kollega ha sagt att nu uppfyller Finland kraven för att gå med i NATO. Hur ser du på risken att Finland går in ensamt före Sverige?
Ja, jag har redan svarat på den frågan där hemma och konstaterat att vi jobbar naturligtvis med målet att vi ska kunna bli medlemmar i NATO tillsammans med Finland. Men detta är trots allt ändå en fråga för det turkiska parlamentet, och det har varit välkänt från början att det här är en fråga om suveräna stater som fattar suveräna beslut. Sverige fattar sina beslut i riksdagen. Finland fattar sina beslut i sin riksdag, och det turkiska parlamentet fattar beslut om att godkänna våra ratifikationsprocesser i en suverän process. Däremot noterar jag naturligtvis idag att min kollega utrikesminister Mevlut Cavusoglu har meddelat att man är beredd att återuppta samtalen med Sverige, och vi står naturligtvis redo att göra detta. Det är ett välkommet och bra besked ifrån Turkiet, tycker vi.
Vad är nästa steg i de här samtalen?
Ja, vi börjar med att återuppta dem, och det är ju det beskedet som har kommit idag från utrikesministern i Turkiet, att man är redo att göra detta, och det är ett välkommet besked. Vi är naturligtvis helt redo att fortsätta de här diskussionerna.
Konferensen i Turkiet i konferensen, vad räknar ni med för turkiskt deltagande i den?
Jag var redan på kvällen, samma kväll som jordbävningen hade inträffat, strax före midnatt, i kontakt med min utrikesministerkollega Mevlut Cavusoglu, och ställde då i utsikt att vi skulle genomföra den här konferensen, vilket möttes med ett stort välkomnande från deras sida. Vi räknar naturligtvis med att Turkiet kommer att delta precis som alla andra stater på hög nivå, och det kommer naturligtvis vara väldigt bra, därför att det kommer också ge möjligheten för Turkiet och även andra stater att tala om vilka behov som behöver fyllas under de kommande veckorna och månaderna. Det här är en jordbävning av oanade proportioner. Det är väldigt mycket infrastruktur som har blivit förstört. Det är fruktansvärda konsekvenser när det gäller försörjningsförhållanden och levnadsvillkor för människorna i de här drabbade provinserna i Turkiet. Och det är självklart att det kommer att krävas ett mycket nära samarbete mellan Turkiet, mellan det svenska ordförandeskapet och mellan kommissionen och övriga medlemsstater och stater ute i världen för att vi ska kunna bispringa det turkiska folket till den här väldigt svåra stunden.
Sanktionsläget, räknar du med att det blir ett 10:e paket klart på fredag?
Vår målsättning är naturligtvis att jobba för att ett sanktionspaket mot Ryssland så fort som möjligt ska kunna komma på plats. Vi håller just nu på att diskutera de här olika delarna i paketet. Jag vill inte binda mig för en absolut tidpunkt i det här avseendet, men det viktiga är naturligtvis att vi ser till att göra två saker. Dels lasta på nya sanktioner så att vi kan se till att stoppa Rysslands illegala aggression mot Ukraina, men och försvåra för Ryssland, men också naturligtvis att vi bör se över vilka hål som finns i de nuvarande sanktionerna, där Ryssland konstant arbetar för att försöka runda sanktionerna och ändå få införsel av material som kan gynna krigsinsatsen. Och det behöver vi naturligtvis också se över.
När det gäller NATO-processen, du ska inte ha några samtal med Haavisto idag och vad tänker du att det skulle... Ja, vad har du för budskap i så fall till honom?
Jag har ständiga samtal med min kollega Pekka Haavisto och vi har pratat idag naturligtvis. Och det gör vi för att stämma av processerna. Just nu så handlar det också om att se till att vi ligger i fas när det gäller de parlamentariska processerna i Sverige och Finland. Och vi kommer ju nu från regeringens sida inom kort i början av mars att leverera den proposition till riksdagen som då kommer att leda till att vi kan slutföra anslutningsarbetet. Det blir den så kallade anslutningspropositionen som läggs på den svenska riksdagens bord. Och eftersom Finland är på väg att slutföra sina processer så innebär det att vi också med precis samma anslutningsarbete så innebär det att vi kommer att hamna i fas. Vilket ju har också varit målsättningen för den svenska regeringen och den finska regeringen att vi ska ligga nära varandra så långt det är möjligt.
Minister, with the deadlock, are you worried that the war could extend to another countries in Europe, especially that you are saying that Putin should lose and some your French colleagues we don't have to humiliate Russia?
I will be very clear on this. The only way to stop this war is for Russia to stop this war. Because Russia could end this war tomorrow by simply withdrawing its troops and call an end to the war. If Ukraine stops fighting, Ukraine will cease to exist as a nation. That has been a very clear message from Moscow. Now, so the only way to move forward is to aim for a military defeat in the battlefield of Russia. And this is the policy of the Swedish presidency, and it is the policy of Sweden as a state. Creating a military defeat needs to provide Ukraine with more military support, more political support, more humanitarian support, more financial support, and we are going to do this in a steady flow, and we're going to aim for this military defeat of Russia.
Minister, you can't open a window for a peace, a chance for peace, unless Russia totally stop and withdraw.
It is Russia that has started this war. Russia could end this war at any moment in time. But President Putin has made it very clear that he aims for the complete annihilation of Ukraine as a state. That is the bottom line of this discussion.
Är idén från Estland om att ha gemensamma uppköp av ammunition i första hand till Ukraina. Vad förväntar du dig där på dagens möte? Är det en bra idé tycker du?
Det är en mycket bra idé att vi ser över de här förutsättningarna som finns för ammunitionsleveranser, ammunitionsproduktion, ammunitionsuppköp. Och jag förväntar mig att den diskussionen nu kommer att starta på allvar i den Europeiska unionen. Och det är bra att det fortsätter. Däremot så är jag inte säker på att vi just här idag på rådsmötet kommer kunna så att säga komma så långt i den diskussionen, för den är väckt helt nyligen och den är inte ett ämne på dagordningen. Men det betyder ju inte att diskussionerna inte kan starta i medlemsstaterna. Jag måste också hänvisa till att det här är inte bara en fråga för utrikesministrarna. Det finns också försvarsministrar i de olika länderna som också behöver kopplas in för att den här diskussionen ska bli fullödig.
Vilka roll kan svensk vapenindustri spela där tror du?
En intressant fråga, och vi ser fram emot att även där undersöka vilka möjligheter som finns. Ammunitionstillgången till Ukraina är en viktig faktor i det här kriget och i det här skedet i kriget. Och vi behöver ta det på stort allvar, och de beskeden som har kommit från Estland kommer nu att starta en diskussion som är väldigt välbehövlig i den Europeiska unionen om hur vi ska kunna på ett bästa sätt hantera detta. Jag förväntar mig också att den höga representanten Josep Borrell kommer att uttala sig i den här frågan.
get an agreement for the 10th sanctions package until Friday? Are you optimistic?
I'm very optimistic about the sanctions package, but I don't want to bind myself for a certain date at this point in time. We need a 10th sanctions package, and we need to see to it that we can also prop the loopholes that already exist in the sanctions that we have in place. And that also needs to be done because Russia is constantly trying to circumvent the sanctions in order to increase its imports of goods that can be used for the war effort in Russia, and that needs to be stopped.
What are the biggest problems considering loopholes?
The biggest problem is the fact that there are loopholes and that these are connected both to the way that the EU has designed the sanctions and also the way that we work together with, the way that other states operate them. For example, transit countries. That also needs to be looked into.
Yeah, a new package of sanctions against Iran?
We believe that there is a need for a new sanctions package, a fifth one, and yes, we believe that that will come true. We will have a discussion about it in the meeting today.
Can you tell us why Mr. Kuleba isn't participating today? We were expecting him.
Well, Mr. Kuleba has other engagements, and I don't blame him because he's a very busy man. I had the opportunity to talk with him at the Munich Security Conference, and I admire his ability to work constantly for seeing to it that Ukraine can receive as much international support as possible in its fight against the Russian illegal aggression on Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dobar dan.
Dobro jutro, kako je? Redu? A kar jaz začnem? Lahko. Dobro, ravno kar smo imeli en zanimiv zajtrk, delovni neformalni z nekdanjim ruskim svetovnim šahovskim velemojstrom prvakom Garjem Kasparovom. Govorili smo o tem, kot sam pravi, zakaj se mora vojna v Ukrajini končati. In pogovor je bil en uvod v današnje zasedanje zunanjih ministrov, kjer bomo veliko pozornosti namenili vojni v Ukrajini. Kmalu bo eno leto, odkar se je začela, in naj povem zelo jasno, to ni vojna dveh držav. Ruska federacija je začela vojno v Ukrajini, Evropska unija, Slovenija ni v vojni in tudi Slovenija ne bo v vojni. Dejstvo pa je, da ta vojna poteka na ukrajinskem ozemlju, da se Ukrajina logično, kot bi se tudi Slovenija, želi braniti in se brani in tu prosi za dodatno pomoč. In Slovenija seveda bo pomagala, dokler bo to potrebno. Zdaj, jaz bom danes v svojem nastopu povedala tudi, da v Sloveniji konec maja pripravljamo diplomatsko konferenco, ki bo uvod pobuda za podpis konvencije, prve večje mednarodne pogodbe, ki bo zagotovila sodelovanje pri kazenskem pravu, torej pri pregonu, preiskavah v zločine proti človeštvu, v vojne zločine, v druge mednarodne kazenske zločine in proti genocidu. In tu je 77 že podpisnic te pobude. Konferenca bo konec maja v Ljubljani in seveda bo ta mednarodna konvencija, ki bo omogočala tudi sodelovanje z tretjimi državami, pomagala tudi pri preiskavah in pregonu vojnih zločinov na območju Ukrajine. Tako da to bo ena pomembna razprava za Slovenijo, ki pa to pobudo dela skupaj z Nizozemsko in Belgijo in s 3 zunajevropskimi državami, Angolijo, Senegalom in pa Moldavijo, res izjemno pomembna.
Kar če ostaneva pri tej pogodbi, kaj točno bo prinesla, verjetno sicer pogajanja še potekajo, ampak zakaj si Slovenija prizadeva, da bi ta mednarodna pogodba...
To bo prva pogodba te vrste, tako velika mednarodna pogodba, ki bo pravzaprav vzpostavila en mehanizem med sodelovanji z preiskovalnih organov z državami Evropske unije in s tretjimi državami. Torej, če bo šlo, da je na ozemlju kakšne države, so dokazi, dokazno gradivo, so mogoče priče, bodo pregoni, organi pregona bistveno lažje izmenjali informacije, kar je zelo pomembno pri preiskavah genocida, vojnih zločinov, kazenskih raznih mednarodnih drugih zločinov, tako da je to pravzaprav velika mednarodna pogodba, prva to vrstna, in Slovenija, Nizozemska in Belgija še vedno skušata pridobiti še večje število držav podpisnic. Ta prva diplomatska konferenca konec maja v Sloveniji pa bo zbrala veliko strokovnjakov za mizo, to je tudi za naše ministrstvo en velik zalogaj. Organizacija te konference je pa za področje sodelovanja na kazenskem pravu, pri pregonu in preiskavah izjemno pomembna, in tu tudi Slovenija dokazuje, da res vodi zelo jasno politiko preiskovanja odgovornosti, tudi ko gre za vojne zločine v Ukrajini.
Pa bo to neko osnov tudi za mednarodno sodišče ali bo to verjetno bolj za nacionalne preiskave?
Tu je lahko vse povezano, zdaj pogovori, kakšno bo to mednarodno sodišče, še potekajo za preiskave, ampak zagotovo bo v veliko pomoč pri preiskavah in pregonu ta mednarodna konvencija, ker bo omogočala sodelovanje s tretjimi državami, kjer se seveda pojavljajo lahko dokazi, kjer so lahko priče in tako naprej.
Kdaj pa bi lahko bila dokončno podpisana ta pogodba, to verjetno maja?
Jaz mislim, da bo konec maja, ko bo diplomatska konferenca združila vse strokovnjake, jasna tudi bolj časovnica za naprej.
Še danes je med temami tudi so sankcije, nov paket sankcij. Zakaj se boste zavzeli pri tem za kakšne spremembe? Predlog komisije, je Slovenija zadovoljna?
No, zdaj predlog o 10. paketu sankcij zoper ruski režim je šel v prestolnice, zdaj se še usklajuje, tu gre za dodatne osebe na seznamu, gre tudi za dodatne ekonomske sankcije, tako da, ko bo to usklajeno, jaz sem prepričana, da bo Slovenija znotraj Evropske unije kot vedno do zdaj tudi dodatne sankcije podpirala.
Med ukrepi, ti ukrepi v okviru tega novega paketa so namenjeni tudi preprečevanju izogibanja sankcijam. Pa me zanima, kaj Slovenija počne na tem področju pri izvajanju. Ima tukaj kakšne težave?
Zdaj, seveda mi vsakič, ko govorimo o izvajanju sankcij, tudi z roko v roki z gospodarstvom, s podjetji, ki sklepajo svoje dogovore, ves čas opozarjamo, kakšna je politika Slovenije, da sankcije spoštujemo, da smo vedno v vseh ukrepih zoper ruski režim, ki je targetiran, torej targetirani ukrepi zoper ruski režim, tu izjemno natančni, in k temu pozivamo seveda tudi vsa naša podjetja, ki sklepajo dogovore na tak ali drugačen način, vsaj na trgih, ki so v bližini Rusije ali pa v Rusiji.
A quick question in English, if I may. Secretary Blinken has said he is concerned about China right now and that China might start delivering weapons to Ukraine. What is your message to China, and what would be the consequences for China if it was to Russia, by the way? What would be the message if China was to start delivering weapons to Russia?
The message is don't do it, because everything like delivering further weapons for destruction of civilian targets, civilian infrastructure, killing civilian people, kids, children, is escalating additional war in Ukraine. We want to see peace, and we have to do everything to stop the war in Ukraine. We will help Ukraine as long as it takes, because this is a war that Russia Federation starts in Ukraine. It's not the war between two countries, it's the war in Ukraine. And as every country, Ukraine has a complete right to fight for its independence, territorial sovereignty and integrity.
Maybe be on the agenda, the dialogue between Belgrade and Pristina, considering that the next week there is high-level.
No, I don't think that is on the agenda. No discussion on the Western Balkans. Thank you. Hello.
So good morning, everyone. From the Finnish side, of course, this is a very important Foreign Affairs Council. First issue of Ukraine. War has lasted now for 1 year. Ukraine has been fighting very bravely. We are preparing in the European Union the 10th package of sanctions. From the Finnish side, we have been delivering actually 12 military packages worth of almost 600 million euros. We are planning to be part of the Leopard tank ecosystem as well. Decisions will be made very likely during this week in Finland. I think it's very important that we continue support to Ukraine, and also we try to avoid all circumvention of the sanctions. Finland has delivered a non-paper on the circumvention of the sanctions, and certainly this topic will also be discussed here, that how to get the sanctions as effective as possible. Second topic, Moldova. We see a lot of political and security risks around Moldova. It's very important that we pave now the way for the Moldovan European Union membership and pay attention both to the economic and security situation in Moldova. And my third point is Iran. We are extremely concerned about the human rights situation in Iran, about the pressure against women and girls who are protesting currently in Iran, but also Irani's support to Russia and Russian military. We condemn strongly the action of Iran to support Russia at this moment.
What do you think of the proposal that EU buys artillery together?
Sorry?
What do you think of the proposal of the joint purchase ammunition?
I think these ideas of making the joint deals on ammunition and also enhance the production of the ammunition to help Ukraine, it's very good initiative, and I think there should be more coordination on the military production in Europe.
Sorry, a quick question on China. Are you afraid that China could start delivering weapons, and how does this fit together with the Chinese plan to present a peace initiative?
Well, we don't know too much about the Chinese peace initiative. Of course, if any constructive issues could be proposed to get Russia out from Ukraine and end the Russian fighting against Ukraine, that's always positive. But we are afraid, of course, that Russia will find new sources of weapons and new sources of ammunition, and we hope that China would not be actively supporting militarily Russia, but really try to sincerely support the peace. And we think that the only way to support the peace is pressure now Russia to withdraw from Ukraine.
What would be the consequences if China were to deliver weapons?
Well, I think from the European side it's very important that we continue our sanctions. We try to get situation so that the circumvention of the sanctions is not possible anymore, and also that we enhance the European Peace Facility to help European countries to deliver more weapons and more ammunition. Finland has been active on this. We have delivered 12 packages military support, and we are preparing for the 13th package now.
But could the EU afford to sanction China?
Well, I don't want to go to too much speculations, because I think it's very important that the right narrative, what has happened to Ukraine has been under the attack of its neighbor, that this narrative wins, and also that we have to use the negotiation power from the EU side, also in the UN context, to have as big majority to support Ukraine as possible.
What will be in the next 10 sanctions package? Is it enough?
Well, hopefully new sanctions will be delivered. Of course, we don't open the details of these sanctions, but as important as the new sanction package is to avoid the circumvention of the old sanctions, and to get sanctions effective is really also to block all the sideways that we still can see, that the avoidance of sanctions is still ongoing.
Minister, do you mind?
Okay, thank you.
Minister, it's 1 year now of the war in Ukraine, 10 group of sanctions, all the effort of the European, and so far the war is growing, not slowing down. When and how we can find an end to this war, when and how we can start a peace process?
Well, it's very important, first of all, that we continue our support to Ukraine to get Ukraine as strong military position as possible. But of course, at the same time, we see 3 channels of communication still ongoing. The grain trade deal facilitated by UN is very important to avoid the situation that the world is in a food crisis due to this war. UN has done excellent work on this grain trade issue. The second issue is the important work of the IAEA around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I think Mr. Grossi has done excellent work from the IAEA side to avoid a nuclear catastrophe in Zaporizhzhia. This is very important work by the United Nations. And then, of course, the third negotiation line has been the exchange of the war prisoners from the humanitarian purpose. It's very important. That's something that has been facilitated by Turkey.
Finland was always among those who are fighting for peace. With this war, you are even start giving weapons. Isn't it an extreme change for Finland?
Well, it's not extreme change because actually when we look at the UN Charter, according to Article 51, a country has the right to defend itself and it has the right to ask help from the others until UN Security Council makes the final solution on the issue. Now we know that UN Security Council is paralyzed. Ukraine has been attacked. Ukraine has asked help from countries like Finland. It's actually very similar as the Iraqi occupation of Kuwait. The same principle was used that also to release Kuwait from the Iraqi occupation. So this is not the first time we are defending a country that has been under unlawful attack.
Are you ready to enter NATO without Sweden?
Well, currently Secretary Blinken is visiting Turkey, and I'm sure that the message from the United States is very clear. The sooner, the better. Ratification both Finland and Sweden should happen to NATO. We have two countries left. One is Turkey, one is Hungary, and we hope that both countries process both ratifications as soon as possible. Of course, we have done our part. We have left the application. Sweden has left the application to join NATO, and now it's the NATO member states to make the final decisions.
But you got from your Turkish colleague told you this weekend that Finland is ready?
Well, but the message that we have, the message that we have got from Turkey is that those issues that we agreed to do in the tripartite process last summer from the Finnish side has been delivered and so forth. This is of course a positive message, but still the actions then from the Turkish side should be taken. Thank you.
Good morning. How are you today?
Cold.
Huh?
Cold.
Well, this week marks 1 year of the aggression of Russia against Ukraine. 1 year later, what do we see? Thousands of people being killed, mass destruction, continuous bombing, and sending shockwaves to the world economy, tumbling, energy prices, food crisis, really Putin is guilty for creating a lot of pain, not only to the Ukrainians, but to the whole world. But especially to the Ukrainians. See what's happening. Continuous bombing, destruction of civil infrastructures, killing of civilians. This week will be focused on giving an answer to this aggression. First, here at the Foreign Affairs Council, we will discuss about the situation in Ukraine. We will discuss about the 10th package sanction. Everybody's talking about sanctions and everybody wants sanctions, but at the end it's the Council who takes the decision, and we will continue discussing. I cannot assure you that we will have a final agreement today, but we will continue working on it. The ministers have to agree on the package being discussed. And then United Nations. I will fly to New York and participate in the debates of the Security Council and the General Assembly on the resolution against Russia, on the resolutions on defending Ukraine's right to keep living as a sovereign country and its territorial integrity. It's a very important vote in the United Nations. Remember, 143 votes, let's see, which is the level of support today by the whole world to Ukraine and condemning Russian aggression. Then tomorrow we'll go to NATO, together with Minister Kuleba. We'll have a meeting, the Secretary General of NATO, Minister Kuleba from Ukraine, and myself, and the issue will be, as today also, how do we provide quicker arms to Ukraine, especially ammunition. You know that the most important pressing issue today for the Ukrainian army is to have a continuous flow of ammunition of 155 caliber. Also 152, but 155 is the most important one. The Russian artillery shots about 50,000 shots a day. And Ukraine needs to be at the same level of capacity. They have cannons, but they lack ammunition. So we'll do everything we can, using the peace facility to provide financing, looking for the ways in which the European Defence Agency and the Commission all together we can do a common purchase, asking the member states to give part of their stockpiles to the Ukrainian army. It's the most urgent issue. If we fail on that, really the result of the war is in danger. So today the Foreign Affairs Ministers, tomorrow at NATO, and next week in Stockholm with the Defense Ministers. At the end it is the Defense Ministers who have to take these kind of decisions. Defense is a member states' competence, and it's the Defense Ministers who are the master of this kind of decision. So I will present several proposals to them and see which is the best one, and the best one has to be implemented quicker. So Ukraine, United Nations, Foreign Affairs Council, new package of sanctions, and NATO and defense ministers. A full week.
You said clearly that no peace except if Ukraine won the war. But how long this can take?
I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows. But Ukraine is not the only point in the agenda. There are other pressing issues. Moldova. We will receive the Foreign Affairs Minister, Vice President, Deputy Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister of Moldova. You know the critical situation where Moldova is. The pressure from Russia. We'll study with Moldova the regional security, keeping in mind that soon Moldova will be hosting the conference of the political community for Europe. We are providing support to Moldova through our European Peace Facility too. And then two more issues, which are maybe not as much in the agenda as they should be. Afghanistan. We have to give an answer to the decision taken by the Taliban to forbid women to participate in the work of the NGOs. We have to do something against it. At the same time, you have to take care not to create more harm to the Afghan people. So our support has to be calibrated, keeping a balance between answering the Taliban decisions and not creating more pain for the Afghan people who are depending on our support, especially on the fields of health and education. There has been a pause in our support. We will have a conference with Amina Mohammed, Under Secretary General of the United Nations, to discuss about the right answer. But keep in mind, to ban any kind of financial support, it will be against the Afghan people. To continue business as usual means that we don't care about the Taliban's decision. So no, we have to send a message to the Taliban, but we have to continue to support the Afghan people. Let's see what the ministers and the Commission propose about it. And then Iran, we are going to approve a new package of sanctions based on the humanitarian actions, and humanitarian human rights, not humanitarian, human rights. A new and important package of sanctions against Iran responsible for what has happened in the last days, on the cracking of the demonstrators and the use of capital penalty. Yesterday I had a phone call with the Iranian minister to announce him that we was going to take this decision and asking him to stop the repression and fulfill their obligation with respect to the international agency, because there are some worrisome news on the enrichment of uranium by Iran.
On Ukraine, are you? You said it's important for Ukraine to get a steady influx of weapons. Now they asked for cluster ammunition. What do you think about that?
Look, I cannot go to the details of what kind of ammunition. We will see. The ministers will decide. The important thing is to go quickly to provide 155 caliber munitions.
So I know I'm just ammunition.
No one's about it.
Secretary Blinken says he's worried that China is going to start giving weapons to Russia. Do you share those concerns, and what would be the consequences from the EU if China started giving weapons to Russia?
Well, I heard this statement from the Secretary Blinken. I had a long conversation, me too, with the State Chancellor Wang Yi, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, which has now been nominated State Councillor. He was already a State Councillor, let's say, responsible on the Central Committee of the Communist Party for foreign relations. I had a conversation with him, and I expressed our strong concern about China providing arms to Russia, and asking him not to do that, and expressing not only our concern, but the fact that for us it would be a red line in our relationship. He told me that they are not going to do it, that they don't plan to do it, but we will remain vigilant.
What will be the
Looking back on 1 year,
consequences?
why do you think the Commission has done enough on sanctions, and is it sufficient since Russia's economy has only shrunken by 2.5%?
Well, look, there are three parameters in which you can have a look at the consequences of the sanctions approved by the Council. First, public deficit. In January is 14 times bigger than last January. 14 times bigger. Second, trade deficit, much bigger. And third, the income coming from hydrocarbons. Half in January 2023 than in January 2022. 2022, the sanctions were not in full implementation. The energy prices were very high, and we were still dependent on gas from Russia. Today, the prices have gone down. Russia is selling its oil at $40 a barrel, when the market is at 80, so they get half of the market price. And we have get rid of the gas dependency. So this year is going to be a very bad year for the Russian economy.
But it is an economy also, it's a very bad year for all the other countries, even the European and some Arabian countries, even they are suffering much more.
I said this war has been sending shock waves to the whole world. Everybody is paying the consequences of this war. Not only
castellano muy rápido, por favor.
Tengo que marcharme, tengo...
¿De qué estamos hablando? La compra conjunta y, sobre todo, ¿espera usted hoy un impulso definitivo para eso? Es importante para Ucrania.
Hoy lo vamos a hablar, pero quien tiene que tomar la decisión son los ministros de defensa.
¿De qué cantidad estamos hablando?
7 y 8. No lo sé, pero desde luego muchas.
Señor Borrell, ¿está preocupado por la situación en Irán y los suministros de drones letales?
Pues claro que sí, ¿cómo no voy a estar?
High Representative?
Good morning. So once again we meet to talk about Russia's war in Ukraine. We're approaching a year mark in the calendar, which gives an opportunity actually to not just to establish what has been achieved throughout the year, but think about months, days, weeks to come. And this is where I think it's a very important point that we need to make, that there are no two camps in Europe. There is no victory and peace camp. We have to stay as one peace after victory camp, and not just in Europe, but with all those supporting Ukraine. We have to commit with actual content to Ukrainian victory. We have to put meaning to the words when we say that we're sticking with Ukraine till the end. We have to actually admit that the end is Ukrainian victory, reconquering all its territories. We have to commit to sending the weapons that Ukraine needs in full capacity for them to be able to retake the territory. And we have to commit that negotiation cannot happen with those who are expected at the special tribunal that we are hoping to create for the war crimes and atrocious war crimes that are happening in Ukraine. We do not negotiate with war criminals. We negotiate maybe with those who lost the war about the settlement of the after-war conditions.
And are you worried, Minister, in this context and these conditions that you are talking about, that war could extend to other countries, including the risk of of one state, how you estimate this risk?
Well, first of all, this is one of the reasons why we say that the war has to be won in Ukraine. If it's not war in Ukraine, if it's stopped in Ukraine, then we at the beginning of writing a new chapter of the next war to come. We've started writing the new chapters in 2008 when the war was stopped in Georgia, when there was no victory, but there was some sort of a peace agreement. So we wrote a chapter for attacking Crimea. After Crimea, we started writing a chapter for 2022. And now I hope that this is the last chapter, that this is it, that Russia loses, fully loses, and we reclaim the territories of Ukraine, and the continent can be safe and secure.
The message is don't.
We are very much closely looking into what our partners are saying. Indeed, it will be an extremely worrying development in the war. I would not discount that possibility because the no boundaries relationship that was agreed between the two countries can, at least in our mind, include also sending lethal weapons to Russia, who's not doing so well in the war, for it to push Ukraine further. But then we would be at the start of a very dark period globally. I rate it as a good step forward. The only thing that worries us is the derogations that are constantly proposed to any current sanction packages that are put on the table. So we are for the sanctions, we are not for the derogations. Oh, one thing that I can definitely mention is Rosatom. We should definitely put that on the table. We should definitely have also a public debate about adding Rosatom to the sanctions. It's way overdue. I know that some countries are worried about contracts that are in place, that they need those contracts in order for their nuclear power plants to be operational. That's needed for their nuclear safety, that's needed for their energy safety. It's understandable, but we can derogate that. The same way we did with oil. Some countries could not be able to forfeit the contracts, the oil contracts with Russia, so we left them. But still 95% of the imports to European Union were sanctioned, are now under embargo. Same thing can happen with nuclear, with Rosatom. Thank you.
Sorry, with regard to China, Secretary Blinken has said he's worried that China is going to start delivering weapons to Russia. What is your message right now to China, and what consequences would there be from the European, or should there be from the European Union if they do that?
I think that China might be betting on the fact that the global north, the way it's trendily called now, is too much focused on Ukraine. But I think that the lesson has to be drawn that there were those who expected the West, global north, not to be united when it came to Russia's attack on Ukraine. But we were united. So there's a lesson in that. So I would think that drawing from this lesson, there will be enough arguments for China not to assist Russia in its what I call genocidal war in Ukraine. Thank you.
Minister, you mind?
I'm not sure whether I'm not sure.
Just a very quick question.
Please.
Rumor has it, or the Americans are afraid that China might start delivering weapons.
Yeah.
Are you concerned?
Of course, very much concerned. Exactly a year ago, a no-bounds friendship and partnership agreement has been agreed between the two countries. In our mind, that could include also weapon deliveries to Russia. But I hope that enough arguments have been presented throughout the year when we've seen the West can stay united, can be united, and have a united answer with sanctions, with political isolation, so that the countries would think twice whether they want to get themselves involved with assistance to Russia in Russia's war against Ukraine.
But do you think you actually afford to sanction a country like China?
Well, I think that we have to send a very strong signal that basically we are able to make decisions and agree on sanctions, on isolation, and other things. This is the instrument that we have. we cannot afford no bounds partnership, forming an alliance against a country that is in our neighborhood, a candidate European country, a European Union country. I think it would be unimaginable if we would not have any sort of answer.
Do you think enough is being done since Russia's economy is only shrinking by 2.5%?
Well, sanctions is a long engagement. That means that we have to wait for it to fully kick in. We're seeing a lot of happening. Let's say oil revenues are dropped by 1/3. That's a lot of money that is out of Russia's coffers. But as in any other case, more needs to be done. And I'm very happy that European Commission, together with member states, are still working on new sanction packages. It shows that the sanctions as a mechanism is an alive and active one. It's not a passive one where you just adopt and you leave it be, but we check it back. We increase the pressure. So I think it's still a very good way forward. And again, it's a forming mechanism. Before that, no country has been sanctioned as much as Russia. No country has been sanctioned by that many countries globally. So it's not just the EU. So I think we are testing also. It's a sanction as a mechanism, as an instrument of isolation, is being tested as we speak.
And what do you think about the joint purchase proposal by Estonia for ammunition?
I think the one that Josep Borrell will be proposing today, I think it's a if we're talking the same thing, I think it's a good one. Definitely, we are always supporting these sort of ideas. The point is basically, to broaden the answer a little bit, we need to have a very clear commitment to Ukrainian victory, and these sort of agreements, they add to that, because we've been discussing tanks for so long. Now we're discussing F-16s. It might take a very long time, but we need to commit to the things that Ukraine needs right now in order to win the territories, to win its full independence, full sovereignty, and territorial integrity back. And that requires the weapons that we are still not being able to send or produce in our factories.
Minister, Iran now is involved, and maybe China also will be involved in the war, Russian-Ukrainian. Where are we going? Are we going to divide the world to two sides, one against the other?
Well, if you consider the alliance between Iran and Russia, a world divided, then it is divided, but into very unequal groups. Where we, on one side, what I would call even though that the term was used before, an axis of evil. And I would add North Korea to that, So it's 3 rogue countries that are bent on changing the world rules, but I don't think that they are able to do that. They are just aligning themselves because probably there's nothing else that they can do. But most of the world depends on the rules that Russia, Iran, and North Korea are trying to break. Even though they sometimes are less vocal, sometimes they do not join the sanctions, but they need the rules as everybody else. They want to be safe. They want to be citizens, the people of their countries, to be safe freely with the rest of the world. I think that is the general spirit of 98% of the world. Thank you so much. I need to let other people talk. Thank you.
Good morning. Just to say, I'm looking forward to today's discussions, obviously, on the war in Ukraine and the ongoing situation there. And there will be a wide-ranging discussion on the current situation. And obviously, we will be meeting with the Moldovan foreign minister as well, and getting an update in terms of the situation there, and also discussing, of course, Afghanistan and Iran.
You had a meeting last night with the Brexit negotiator Maros Šefčovič. Can you tell us anything about how that meeting went? Are you still hopeful of a deal in the short term on the Northern Ireland Protocol?
Well, first of all, I would say it's very clear to me that there has been very substantial, very serious negotiations for quite some time now between the European Union Commission and indeed the United Kingdom government, and clearly considerable progress has been made on this, and it's clear that these talks have been more in the solution mode, not just raising problems but how to solve particular challenges, and the objective has been to improve upon the protocol in terms of the working of the protocol, and changes as well to be made that would benefit the people of Northern Ireland, business and industry in Northern Ireland, the working of the economy there, and people going about their daily lives, and also securing more seamless movement of goods from United Kingdom to Northern Ireland in the context of those goods that would not be coming into the single market. So obviously there are continuing engagement, and there has been consultations with the parties in Northern Ireland in respect of these negotiations. So I think it's welcome that very serious effort has been happening over the last while, building on work that was done previously, but perhaps at a slower pace in terms of working on all of these issues, because it makes sense that the broader picture, given the enormous situations we're facing globally, such as the terrible war in Ukraine, the energy crisis, the migration issue, situation in Afghanistan and Iran, that the European Union and the United Kingdom have a harmonious and constructive relationship into the future, and also that the institutions of Northern Ireland, as per the Good Friday Agreement, are restored, so that the people of Northern Ireland, that their decision in the last Assembly elections are validated, and that the daily concerns that people in Northern Ireland have in respect of cost of living, health and education are reflected and dealt with by their elected representatives. So I do believe there's a genuine desire all round to resolve these issues through negotiation.
Can you see a deal this week?
Well, again, that very much depends, but I think there has been considerable momentum built up, and I think the visit by the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to the north on Friday was clearly part of apprising and bringing the issues to the political parties in Northern Ireland. So one would be hopeful for progress this week, but one can not be certain. It's not for me to call that right now, or to speculate on that, other to say that people will obviously be seeking clarification in greater detail perhaps, but the EU and the United Kingdom government continue to engage on these issues, so it's primarily for them to decide in terms of when the process has been fully exhausted.
And can I just ask, there are calls for Rishi Sunak to continue with the Northern Ireland Protocol bill. Could a deal actually be done between the UK and the EU if that legislation is still in train in Parliament?
Well, the whole approach here has been to improve upon the protocol that was originally negotiated by a previous UK government, and concerns were raised by various interests in Northern Ireland, political interests, and so the purpose of these negotiations between the EU and the United Kingdom has been to jointly come up with solutions to that. And the desire, as articulated by the UK government and by the Commission, has been for a negotiated solution of these issues, and the outcome of such negotiations then transcends anything else.
So do they need to drop
I'm not getting
bill?
into specifics, I'm just saying there's clear principles here in terms of what the purpose and objective of these talks has been from the outset, which is to have a negotiated resolution of the issues that had been legitimately raised in respect of the operation of the protocol, and practical solutions to be arrived at. And it's very clear to me that this UK government and the European Union have worked in a spirit of trust and serious engagement with a view to solving those issues with all of the challenges that presents. And it has been a very challenging set of negotiations for both the EU and the UK. And it's very clear to me from meeting with Maros Sefcovic and the constant engagement that we in the Irish government and the Taoiseach and the President of the Commission, that the EU has always been solution mode here to try and help and solve the issues in the best interests of the people of Northern Ireland, and in terms of the economy of Northern Ireland, and access to the single market, and seamless movement of goods from UK to Northern Ireland. All of that will help the economy of Northern Ireland into the future. And obviously, people may seek clarity on on sort of future issues to make sure that this is a negotiated resolution that can sustain into the future. And so there's further engagement clearly to happen between the EU and the United Kingdom government, but there's been huge engagement, and that has to be welcomed.
And Tánaiste, you mentioned talks going at a slower pace. I mean, there
No, it's not. That was heretofore.
Right.
On the previous governments, during when Prime Minister Johnson and so on. For the last 2 years it was going rather slow, but in the last 3 to 4 months it has been substantial, serious, and progress has been made.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly.
No, it's not. That doesn't relate to the current.
I see. But there was some anticipation on Saturday that the meeting between Ursula von der Leyen and Rishi Sunak could produce a breakthrough, and then they said that talks needed to continue. Is your sense that the talks have slowed because of a certain level of political pushback from the UK?
No, that's not. I don't believe that the Saturday meeting was meant to be the culmination of this entire process. The UK Prime Minister went to the north to apprise parties in the north about the current situation. My understanding is those contacts will continue, but there hasn't been any slowing at all. What I'm basically saying is the current setup built on previous attempts by previous governments in the UK, but the current phase are characterised by a much more problem-solving approach, substantive engagement to improve upon a protocol that was originally negotiated and upon which people in Northern Ireland had concerns about. It's the resolution of these concerns by negotiation is the subject matter of the process that's been ongoing now for the last 3 to 4 months. It's clear to me that very good progress has been made, and also that the nature of the engagement has been a genuine one, and trust has built up.
Quick question on Ukraine, if I may. Is Ireland continuing its support? Obviously for Ukraine it is, but in terms of bringing more ammunition to Ukraine, Ireland's position on that, please?
Well, I think the European Peace Facility has been the key facility through which we have continued, which Europe as a whole has provided very significant support to Ukraine, and Ireland has provided non-lethal supports to Ukraine, and we will continue to support Ukraine, and we believe the European Peace Facility remains the most effective vehicle to facilitate that ongoing support. The needs on the ground are enormous, and the situation is, I think, extremely challenging all round. The loss of life is shocking. The constant attacks on civilian infrastructure and on citizens in Ukraine is absolutely appalling and shocking, and we all have an obligation to do everything we can to support the people of Ukraine. And we believe we have given very substantial support. We will continue to do that.
Would Ireland be part of joint procurement of ammunition as proposed?
Again, there's work on the way in respect of a specific proposal from a number of countries. But as I say, we're providing non-lethal support. The European Peace Facility has been the effective route to provide that substantial support, and we will continue to work on that basis.
Can I just ask one more, sorry, on the protocol? There's this issue of democratic consent. Just your view, what can be done, what should be done to give the people or the politicians of Northern Ireland more say over what EU laws apply there?
Well, I've met all of the parties in Northern Ireland, and I'm very aware of their concerns around that, or their desires might be more accurate description. In other words, again, as I said, people want to make sure that this negotiated resolution between the EU and UK sustains into the future. So within the joint committees, and there are mechanisms there that can be developed to facilitate inputs to make sure that this agreement sustains into the future. And those concerns have been heard by all concerned. And up to quite recently I've met with all of the parties, so I have a very good idea of what people are seeking. I think the negotiators, the UK and EU teams, are also very conscious of that. And again, if the will is there, and the will has been there, issues can get resolved. And I think what's very important is that everybody now from here on think about the people of Northern Ireland, not power play, not politics elsewhere. I think the people of Northern Ireland have had enough of that, of people playing politics with their future. And in my view, my only concern is that the people of Northern Ireland voted. They want their institutions restored. People had legitimate concerns around the operation of the protocol. There's been a very sincere and substantial attempt to resolve those concerns by the UK negotiating team with the EU negotiating team. I think we should allow that to come to realisation and fruition in the coming while. And we should then focus on the needs of the people. And I've spoken to the voice of industry in Northern Ireland, business people in Northern Ireland. They want certainty. They want a clear pathway for the future. They want access to the European single market because it's beneficial to jobs and the quality of life in Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland can, I think, prosper into the future. And we need to look forward now in terms of the economic future of Northern Ireland. And I think an opportunity is presenting itself. I was in Washington over 2 weeks ago. The United States are very keen on the economic side to give additional support. The European Union stands ready on that side, and I know the UK and the Irish government stand ready to sort of, in the context of the 25th anniversary of Good Friday, to say, look, let's look at the future and let's work in a positive way to improve the quality of lives of the people of Northern Ireland.
Does Rishi Sunak need to stand up to his own Conservative Party and the DUP?
I said all I had to say now, and I thank you very much indeed. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Dobré ráno. Dobrý den. Tak jenom asi úplně na začátek pár věc. Za chviličku začne Rada ministrů zahraničních věcí. Témata jsou očekávatelná. Budeme se věnovat Ukrajině, budeme se věnovat humanitární situaci v Afghánistánu a také se budeme věnovat Iránu. Velmi na okraj se bude diskutovat otázka klimatické změny, ale vzhledem k tomu, že tam ještě nebyl dosažen konsenzus na případných závěrech, tak neočekávám, že by ta debata byla nějakým způsobem zásadní.
Pane ministři, slyšeli jsme, že se bude řešit i možné společné nákupy munice pro Ukrajinu. S tím návrhem přišla estonská premiérka Josep Borrell, již řekl, že se mu ten nápad líbí. Co si o tom myslí Česká republika? Podporujeme společné nákupy munice pro Ukrajinu? My
podporujeme všechna opatření, které podpoří Ukrajinu politicky, ekonomicky, humanitárně i vojensky. Uvidíme, jakým způsobem se ten návrh uchytí, jestli to bude skrze European Peace Facility, nebo jestli se podaří udělat nějaký jiný způsob toho projektu. Nicméně faktem je, že bohužel válka nevidíme její konec, nevidíme konec té války a zároveň víme, že vojenské kapacity nejsou dostatečné, abychom dokázali dodat Ukrajině to, co potřebuje. Takže nějaká forma spolupráce určitě je vítána. Uvidíme, jakým způsobem k tomu návrhu přistoupí ostatní státy. Samozřejmě Česko je velmi aktivní ve všech různých formátech, ať už se bavíme o ramštejnské skupině, o kodaňské skupině. Zapojujeme se do těch projektů. Naše zbrojní firmy jsou velmi aktivní, spolupracujeme se Spojenými státy, to znamená, i takovýto návrh je relevantní, musíme se na ně podívat a uvidíme tedy, jak se to vyvine.
Čeká vás taky debata o sankcích. Tak co od toho očekáváte? Je možné nějaká šance, že už byste dnes ten 10. balíček schválili? A potom mě zajímá ještě jedna věc, diskutuje se dlouhodobě o zařazení jaderných komponent do jaderných elektráren na paliva a tak dále, tak jaký je náš postoj k tomu? Tak 10. balíček dneska určitě nebude zásadním tématem a také nečekám, že by byl dneska přijat. Přece jenom ta jednání ještě probíhají na pracovní úrovni, budou se k tomu scházet velvyslanci a detaily sankčních balíků nechci komentovat. A postoj Česka k tomu možnému zařazení jádra na seznam?
Jak říkám, nechci komentovat obsah sankčního balíku.
Can I ask you a question? Yes, please. In these conditions, Minister, in this deadlock, are you worried that the war could extend to another country, especially that your French colleagues sometimes they worry, they warns that if we humiliate Russia, the risk are more. How do you estimate this risk?
I think this war is war of principle. It is a war of values against Russian imperialism. So it would be Russian decisions to brought another else into war. It would not be our decision or our action which would possibly provoke that. So we need to do everything to stop Russia. We need to do everything to help Ukraine to win this war.
Jeden dotaz k sankcím, tak vlastně dneska by se mohla řešit i, řekněme, jak zlepšit vymáhání v těch existujících sankcích, tak můžete třeba jmenovat nějaké konkrétní problémy, nějaké konkrétní mezery, kudy zkrátka se nedaří stále ty sankce uplatňovat.
Tohle by měla být jedna z těch ambicí toho 10. balíčku sankčního a je potřeba hledat různé cesty, jak omezit obcházení sankcí. Částečně je to o tom, že se lepí díry, to je opravdu velmi technická debata, kdy se bavíme o definici toho, co se smí a nesmí vyvážet, dovážet, ale zároveň musíme se také bavit a k tomu také existují už různé poziční papíry, které si v rámci rady vyměňujeme. Republika se připojila k jednomu z nim, iniciovaných nizozemskou stranou a tam prostě hledáme nové opatření, které by mířily i k tomu, aby více zemí nějakým způsobem dodržovalo nebo následovalo naše evropské sankce. Případně, abychom dokázali najít takové způsoby, že ty sousední státy Ruska nebudou sloužit pro obcházení sankcí.
Týká se to Turecka?
Týká se to obecně vícero zemí, konec konců jsou i vidět, že některá čísla narůstají, ono na druhou stranu to je poměrně těžko uchopitelná látka, nechtěl bych jmenovat nějakou konkrétní zemi.
Jedna anglicky?
Yes.
What do you think is missing from the 10th sanctions package as it currently stands, and what would you like to see in it that's currently
I'm
not
sorry, but I'm not commenting specifics of any sanction regime before it's agreed. So.
Estonian proposal for joint ammunition purchases. Yeah. What's your position on that, and what might be the main obstacles on that front?
Definitely, this is a good idea. We need to do everything what we can to help Ukraine to win this war, to protect its territory and sovereignty, territorial integrity and sovereignty. Would it mean that we will be able to find a way how to commonly procure ammunition in a way that the companies would be able to do long-term investment and then have a production in a capacity which is necessary for such a brutal war, the worst war since the end of the Second World War on the European continent? Then let's do it. Czechia is participating on many activities in the same regard, even speaking about Copenhagen Group, speaking about Rammstein format, so we are open to this idea. We need to investigate it. We need to go a little bit deeper to understand what would it really mean, what would be the mechanisms, but the idea is very good. Yeah.
Jeho poslední dotaz v češtině.
Pane ministře, těšíte se na jednání?
Dobrý den, určitě se těším na jednání. Je to sice den, který strávím zavřený v místnosti bez denního světla. Na druhou stranu řešíme důležité otázky a je to možnost, aby zazněl český hlas v Evropě, to znamená, nenechám si to ujít. Děkujeme. Díky moc, děkuju, nashledanou.
Έχουμε να συζητήσουμε σήμερα μια σειρά από σημαντικά θέματα όπως η Ουκρανία, τα δικαιώματα των γυναικών στο Αφγανιστάν, αλλά και τις ζητήματα που εγείρει η κλιματική αλλαγή και η τεράστια πρόκληση της προστασίας του περιβάλλοντος. Από εκεί και πέρα όμως θα έχω την ευκαιρία ευθύς εξ αρχής να ενημερώσω τους συναδέλφους μου για την επίσκεψή μου στις πληγείσες από τους σεισμούς περιοχές της Τουρκίας και πέραν αυτού να συζητήσουμε πώς μπορούμε να σταθούμε δίπλα στα θύματα του σεισμού στην Τουρκία και στη Συρία. Λυπάμαι να πω ότι πρόκειται για μια βιβλική καταστροφή, πρωτοφανή και κατά συνέπεια χρειάζεται μια τεράστια βοήθεια και μια τεράστια στήριξη.
Minister, can I ask a question, please? Are you worried in these conditions that the war could extend to other countries, especially that your French colleagues, they warned before that we don't have to humiliate Russia, we don't have to put Russia in the corner?
Well, Greece has a position of principle. Territorial integrity, sovereignty of all countries. We go by that as the Holy Gospel. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde, goedemorgen allemaal. Er staan vandaag verschillende belangrijke punten op de agenda. We zullen eerst een nieuwe grote strategie aannemen voor grote meerdergebieden aannemen. Et donc nous allons commencer cette réunion par l'adoption d'une nouvelle stratégie européenne pour la région des Grands Lacs, ce dont la Belgique se réjouit, car vous le savez, nous plaidons depuis plusieurs mois pour une plus grande implication, une plus grande présence de l'Union européenne dans la région des Grands Lacs pour aider les autorités à rétablir une paix durable et à s'attaquer aux causes profondes de l'instabilité. Nous espérons que cette nouvelle stratégie mènera bientôt à des actions concrètes sur le terrain. Bien sûr, quelques jours avant un an de guerre en Ukraine, nous allons faire le point avec les 27 sur la situation sur le terrain, voir quelles sont les attentes de l'Ukraine, voir comment aussi affaiblir la Russie. Il est primordial d'empêcher la Russie de continuer à financer cette guerre injuste et non provoquée. Nous allons aussi adopter donc un 10e paquet de sanctions, ce que soutient la Belgique, et nous sommes prêts à aller encore plus loin. C'est pour ça aussi que je me rendrai dès ce mercredi aux Nations Unies à New York, car nous espérons rallier bientôt la majorité de la communauté internationale à la condamnation de cette guerre, parce que nous ne pouvons vivre dans un monde où l'on bafoue les règles internationales. Il sera aussi question de l'Afghanistan et la délicate interdiction faite aux femmes de travailler avec les ONG. J'ai participé ce week-end à une conférence à Munich sur la sécurité et sur l'attitude que nous pourrions adopter avec le régime taliban, que nous refusons bien sûr de connaître. Quelle stratégie développer à l'encontre des talibans? C'est ce que nous allons échanger avec les 27, et j'échangerai aussi les quelques pistes qui sont sorties de la conférence à Munich, notamment la nécessité d'une meilleure coordination entre l'Union européenne et les pays de la région. Enfin, il sera aussi question de l'Iran. L'Iran qui continue à réprimer violemment sa population et qui refuse d'entendre le cri des citoyens iraniens. Nous allons adopter un 5e paquet de sanctions à l'encontre de l'Iran, et nous allons aussi aborder la question des Européens illégalement détenus et injustement détenus dans les prisons iraniennes, en particulier évidemment notre concitoyen Olivier Van de Castel, détenu maintenant depuis bientôt un an dans des conditions inhumaines. Olivier Van de Castel, dont nous ne cessons de demander la libération.
Minister, may I have a questioning? Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. We have again a very, very important meeting today of the Foreign Affairs Council, and for Romania the most important topics are of course Ukraine, because we are approaching the 1-year mark since the start of the war of Russia against Ukraine, but also the discussion with the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Moldova, a topic which was introduced on the agenda following my proposal. As far as Ukraine is concerned, I think the most important message of today's meeting is that the European Union and its member states will stay by Ukraine, will stand by Ukraine, and will continue to support Ukraine as long as it takes in order for Ukraine to win the war. I will express today full support for a swift adoption of the 10th package of sanctions, for the continuation of the support through the European Peace Facility. And at the same time, I think it's very important that at the end of this week in New York, we will be able to adopt with a large majority the resolution in the General Assembly about the peace in Ukraine. And I think it's important to have a large majority in order to have legitimacy for this approach. At the same time, Romania will continue its support for Ukraine, which is a multidimensional one. As far as the Republic of Moldova is concerned, as far as Romania is concerned, this topic and this discussion is very timely, because, and that is why we have suggested, and I have suggested, to include this topic on the agenda, because we have a new government in Chisinau, a government which is strongly committed for reform and for the European integration of the country. But at the same time, we have seen, as mentioned by the President of the Republic of Moldova, the unveiled plans for destabilization by Russia of the country. And I think it is extremely important that the European Union conveys today, through the foreign ministers, a strong message of support for the resilience and for the security of the Republic of Moldova. In that connection, I will suggest for reflection and for legal analysis the proposal of creating a separate sanctions regime for attempts to destabilize the Republic of Moldova, its constitution, constitutional order and its rule of law. At the same time, I think it's very important that today the Council expresses strong support in terms of creating a new mission, a new civilian mission in the Republic of Moldova, continuing the support for the interconnections as far as the electricity lines are concerned with EU through Romania. At the same time, to continue to support the Republic of Moldova on the path towards European integration. And last but not least, to continue to grant financial assistance to the Republic of Moldova, especially through grants, because the Republic of Moldova needs such financial support now. I would like only to mention the fact that the instrument that we have created last year, together with the foreign ministers of Germany and France, the Moldova Support Platform, is a very important instrument, and we continue using it. A fourth such meeting of the platform being organized by Chisinau in April. Thank you so much.
Bonjour. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Bonjour. Dans quelques jours, cela fera un an que la Russie a agressé l'Ukraine et violé les principes les plus fondamentaux de la Charte des Nations Unies, ceux qu'elle est censée faire respecter en tant que membre permanent du Conseil de sécurité, violer aussi ses propres engagements, ceux qu'elle avait pris à la dissolution de l'Union soviétique, et un an qu'elle pratique en Ukraine les exécutions, la torture, le viol, les déportations d'enfants, un an qu'elle bombarde les civils, qu'elle commet des crimes de guerre et sans doute des crimes contre l'humanité. Alors notre message aujourd'hui est simple. Nous lui demandons d'arrêter, de retirer ses troupes et de respecter la souveraineté de l'Ukraine, qui est un pays indépendant. Et ce message, la communauté internationale le répétera aux Nations Unies cette semaine à l'Assemblée générale. Ici, aujourd'hui, nous allons rappeler notre soutien à l'Ukraine aussi longtemps qu'il le faudra. Nous allons utiliser, et c'est une nouveauté, le mécanisme de la Facilité européenne de paix pour permettre des achats directs de munitions européennes par l'Ukraine. Et puis, nous allons aussi avancer sur le contenu du 10e paquet de sanctions, car c'est déjà le 10e, de façon à ce qu'il puisse être adopté cette semaine, avant le 24 février. Je souhaite aussi que l'on n'oublie pas la Moldavie, dont nous parlerons, la Moldavie qui est fragilisée par la guerre que mène la Russie en Ukraine, bien sûr, et qui est aussi l'objet de tentatives de déstabilisation. Et donc nous serons vigilants et nous serons aux côtés de la Moldavie. Et puis, je voudrais vous dire quelques mots sur l'Iran, qui fait également partie de l'ordre du jour des travaux du Conseil des ministres des Affaires étrangères de l'Union européenne aujourd'hui. Nous devons maintenir la pression, parce que la répression se poursuit. Et nous le ferons aujourd'hui en adoptant un nouveau paquet de sanctions contre des responsables de la répression, y compris des ministres iraniens, responsables de la répression. J'appelle enfin votre attention sur les informations de presse qui font état d'un éventuel enrichissement d'uranium par l'Iran au-delà de 80%. Nous sommes en contact avec nos partenaires à ce sujet. Nous sommes en contact avec l'AIEA qui peut-être aura des informations plus précises. Et il va de soi que si ces informations de presse étaient confirmées, avérées, cela constituerait un élément nouveau et extrêmement préoccupant. Voilà ce que je peux vous dire. Vous me pardonnez de devoir aller en séance puisque je suis déjà un peu en retard. Merci beaucoup.